Good evening, and welcome to the April 6, 2009 Lowell Planning Board meeting. On tonight's agenda, we have 3 matters on old business, and we do not have any public hearings scheduled for this evening. The first matter on our agenda is minutes of previous meetings. The first matter would be the minutes of the March 2nd, 2009 Planning Board meeting. Any of the board members have any comments or corrections on the March 3rd minutes?
None.
Hearing none, make a motion for approval, anyone?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Motion made and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So made. Chair votes yes. Next matter will be the March 16th, 2009 Planning Board meeting minutes. Any comments or corrections from board members?
Mr. Chairman, I just have more, and I can give them to Aaron after, a few grammatical changes under Marginal Street, but nothing of any substance. I can.
Okay. Anybody else, any comments? Or corrections? Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion for the March 16th.
Make a motion to accept the March 16th
Motion.
minutes with Mr. Frichette's corrections.
Second.
Motion made and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes, those have been accepted as amended to be. Moving along, we have 3 matters under old business. The first matter on the old business is 1519/1527 Middlesex Street. The board will review proposed modifications made to the approved site plan at the address located above. The applicant is requesting the following modifications to be approved as a minor change to the approved plan. Alterations to the landscaping island located at the entrance, replacing vertical granite curbing located in the parking lot with asphalt berm and concrete curbing along the pedestrian walkway. The board will also review modifications to mitigation plan agreed upon between the applicant and the Commons Condominium Trust. May we hear the case for the applicant, please?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. George Ciolides, Jr., 133 Market Street, Lowell. And as I believe you know, I represent the property owner in this matter. I went over to the property today to take a look to make sure it stands the same way as we all saw it the last time. There was less snow there, but I think I can report that it certainly looked a lot better than the last time we saw it in the snow and rain. I've had some conversations with Mr. Decker, who represents the association, and spent the weekend putting together an agreement that I think we all agree to in principle. And it basically, that agreement is what my client agreed to originally, but we've, because of I think the legalese that gets involved in these matters when you're talking about rights to cross and recross onto everybody's property, etc. Though I had said to Mr. Decker before the weekend that I was going to put together something of a legal nature that maybe we would consider even recording. Then when I started to do that, and I thought of the fact that that would mean dealing with not just every individual unit owner, but with the mortgage holder of every individual unit holder, plus my client's mortgage holder bank, for them to even know or understand what we were talking about cross easements and licenses, etc. It's both a massive undertaking and headache paperwork-wise. It's an expense that every one of the property unit owners would have to incur. And so thinking about it again, I called Mr. Decker back and said, what I think we need here is a contract between the two parties, an enforceable contract. And that enforceable contract is something that I spent the weekend drawing up. And it basically says exactly what the agreement my client and these folks entered into over a year ago, I think. And only it says it in the more legalese terms. It's in the nature of a license, so that so that those folks can come upon his property. As you recall, there's an area right up to the building that is owned, well, let's say, I don't even know how many, but I'm going to guess 5 or 6 feet up to the building that's owned by my client. And then the rest of the area is an area that is the abutting area that we're going to allow them to take down the fence and basically have the entire use of that property, or that portion of the property, right up to the wall. And of course, what we're trying to do, and this is where the legalese gets in there, and it gets a little tricky, but because there's a need for a fence, a gate at either side, if you recall, that would give access to the fire department and any emergencies, we have to make sure that that language gets in there and that work gets done, obviously, according to all code and requirements. And at the same time, since in essence what my client is doing is giving them the right and the use to this property, we're just asking them to maintain it reasonably, without any negligence on their part. Then we don't expect them to do anything beyond what they're responsible for. We need to have access because we can't go back and fix and paint and do things to the rear of the building unless we have access there. So the agreement that I've drawn calls for all of that. And I think that in my conversation with Mr. Decker, clearly we've, as I said, in principle, it says exactly what the prior agreement says, but it's more properly drawn out. Obviously, because of the time involved, I've just spoken to the folks just before the meeting here. They're a little uncomfortable without having all of the people involved with the association, at least having an opportunity to know and see what that's all about. And so I think, again, and I'll let them speak for themselves, but I think, again, in principle, we've agreed that what we've promised to do and what they've promised to do is mutually accepted and agreeable. So all we need to do, the only other thing I indicated to them, because if you recall, there was the question of putting siding the rest of the way on the building, and I never contemplated how much time would be involved in doing that. So I mentioned tonight the number of 60 days. I only say that, not that I think it would take that long, but who knows how long it's going to take to hire a contractor, get him over there, get him to get the materials and do it. I figured that would allow a little extra breathing room. My concern, on the other hand, though, and I can understand, we don't have actual signatures, and I want them to feel comfortable with what it is that we've agreed to. My concern, on the other hand, is I've asked the board to consider waivers, and on the other items that we all looked at there, the asphalt berm as opposed to the granite, the berm on the front, the concrete on the front on the sidewalk there, and some landscaping work, all of which my client, the landscaping work, is in the process of doing now and will continue to do, because obviously it's important to his shopping center to have the place look good in the front. Just from what I saw today, I think there's a vast improvement there. My concern, as I started to say, is, as you know, we have one tenant in there on a temporary occupancy basis, and I just don't want to be held up for a long period of time in case we're lucky enough in this depressed time that we're living in to be able to get one or more tenants. I need the ability to be able to put a tenant in there, and I think we've made a good faith effort. I don't think anyone will question that. Maybe it wasn't done quite as fast as I would have liked, but I did have the audacity to take 10 days to go to Florida and watch the Red Sox a few times, so that followed up the month of March. But other than that, believe me, we really did work at trying to get this all done and out of the way. So I think maybe I would suggest that these folks be heard from so that we don't have any questions about anything I had to say. I'll be glad to answer any questions the board has, by the way.
I just have a question, a couple of questions regarding to, the conditions that you asked to waive from the city, but I'll get back to those after I hear from them. Because the way I look at it is twofold. There was one agreement with them, and then there was conditions that you came in for relief that we haven't voted on as of yet. And I believe some of them you're willing to modify, and some of them that were in place now, you're not willing to modify.
They're not, I didn't hear the
Some of
motion.
them you're willing to modify, and some you were not. Correct?
Oh, we're willing to modify,
Everything?
Everything.
From the city, not the association. From what the city requested.
we're willing to make we're asking the board to let us remain with the berms that we have there currently, and the front walkway change that we made, but everything else that we're supposed to do, we're going to do, Mr. Chairman.
I just have a question on that later, because I'm not sure exactly if everything's been completed, but I know, like you say, some of it was ongoing. I haven't been up there even the last 2 weeks. But I know some of the questions that came out as a result of the walkthrough, so we'll answer those questions later. Because I know you come in, you had 3 waivers to begin with, the one you agreed upon, so you had 2 other requests, correct?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
When you came in to begin with, you had 3 requests. One,
Right.
I believe, well, you had 3 with the neighborhood, and you worked out one, there was 2 we're going forward with, and then the city had a couple in regards to the berms on the back, the berms in the front, and then when you drive in, the big berm to where all the shops are now, that berm that was up there. I don't think most of those, that berm was a major concern. I think a lot of it had to do with the landscaping and how that was gonna be cleaned up compared to what was there now and what was there in the past.
I think we have taken, or we've certainly agreed to take care of everything the city was concerned with, even to the extent that, if you recall, that front area where the sign wasn't finished quite like we would have liked to have initially, but that was work that was done in the fall last year on a quick basis. I again spoke with Mr. Ahn today, with council, who also present, and we made it clear to him that there are bushes and flowers that we think are appropriate to go in there, and that's going to be done. I'm quite confident of that. So I really think it's, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, I really think it's just a question of getting a comfort level with the abutters here to know that we are, in fact, ready to do the rest of the work. Well, we've done the roof, the air conditioners, we've done that. That's taken care of. We've agreed that they can take down our fence and put up the other fences, as I was describing before, the corner pieces, and that we're giving them the right, the license to go upon that land, so long as we, of course, have the right to come upon there to fix our building. And then the third and final item is the rest of the siding, which I think we indicated we will do, and we will do it, I think, as we all agreed, in the area that will cover the block down to, you know, there's like a concrete foundation base that goes up, I'm gonna guess 3 to 4 feet, that's just foundation that isn't viewable at that point anyways, I think. So we've all agreed on that. So I think we're there, Mr. Chairman. The only question is, how do we do it mechanically so that if my client is fortunate enough to find another tenant in the meantime, we can get an occupancy. That's my only other concern.
Okay, thank you, Counselor.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to be heard on this site? Sure. Step right up and just state your name and address for the record, please.
Paul Willett, one of the trustees at 1541 at the Commons. I did spend a few minutes earlier talking to Mr. Elias, and I received the agreement that he worked on this weekend at about 11:30 today, so I haven't had the chance to go through it in detail or with my fellow trustees. I would like the opportunity to do that before giving any kind of decision on whether or not we're going to sign it or edit it or whatever. I do appreciate that effort. However, because of the fact that we've got a little bit of history here, we would like to have that time to do that. I personally have no interest in seeing Mr. Ahn suffer because of this, but I would also like the board to keep in mind just how much leverage we've had in the past and what's happened because of it. So, yes, we would love to see this resolved as soon as possible. We'd love to see him in business and doing business well, but we also don't want these things to just, be signed away, so to speak. On a personal note, I appreciate the site visit and the amount of work you guys have done to try to get this resolved.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else like to speak on behalf of the neighborhood association or anybody in the neighborhood?
Hi, I'm Helen Dolan from the Commons. You mentioned the berms, landscaping. One thing I did not hear mentioned was the location of the dumpster. It's presently in a location that was not agreed upon. It was supposed to be on the opposite side of the property. I walked over there yesterday, and it is still in its original spot. I was wondering if that was one of the conditions that will be changed.
It's on my list right here to address.
Thank you. And again, I appreciate the work that you have done in coming out to the property also.
I know that, before I turn over the other board members, I know when we were out that night, everybody was talking at different sites. I know some of them went back and looked at that as well, and that's one of the questions I have to address as well.
Okay, thank you.
But are you in agreement of, I'm sorry.
I'm
yeah?
just, could you just sign in when, if
Okay.
you, so I can get your name and
So-
address correctly? Thank you.
Ma'am, are you also in agreement to let the matter go a little further so you can have a chance to look the matter over to see what the agreement may be?
I would really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, I appreciate that. Okay. Thank you. Anybody else like to speak on the matter?
Hi, Kevin Decker, Riney Management Corp. I'm managing agent for Commons Condominiums. Again, I also appreciate all of you coming out at the last meeting to view the property and view our concerns. I have, since that meeting, Attorney Elitis has been in direct contact with me to work on getting an agreement together, as you mentioned this evening. Our biggest concern is, of course, as Paul Willett mentioned, the time. We did not have a lot of time to review that agreement. I think most of the content, is what we're looking for. Everything, that we agreed on is in there. It just may be some issues with the language. We are not, as Mr. Willett mentioned as well, looking to stand in the way of his occupancy permits, but we are looking to get a definitive time frame, if it can be incorporated at this meeting, to when these items will be done. I think the 60-day time frame that Mr. Elitis has mentioned is reasonable for the completion of the siding and the definition that the siding will be completed all the way across the back of the building, as viewed by all of you. The screening issue we're satisfied with. It is really down to just the language in this use agreement of this property. The area we're agreeing to is not quite as large as one may view. It may only be a couple feet, but we're looking to get that fence project completed in a reasonable time frame as well, and secure the back of his building for him as well. So, moving forward, I think we're close to resolving it based on a little bit of language. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kevin, I appreciate it. Anybody else present this evening like to speak on this issue? Anybody else want to speak on this matter? Hearing nobody else at this point in time. Any of the board members have any questions at this time? Go ahead, Mr. Claremont.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could just ask, 60 days was mentioned as a time frame by which to complete the items that the condo association would like. Is that a reasonable time frame from everyone's perspective?
I think it's more than we need, Mr. Claremont, but I just wanted to be safe so that we didn't look like we were. I mean, if for some reason something came up, let's say the same siding that's on there wasn't available, which looked pretty generic to me, but and wouldn't be available for a month or something like that, that would certainly foul us up. But beyond that, I'm quite certain everything else. I would probably say 30 days, but I don't want to run into a problem.
So if we said, for example, I know you're looking for certain waivers tonight for the board to vote on, the other issues perhaps dealing with the condo association, we may put off until this letter is reviewed by everybody. Would that letter or agreement be ready to review in 2 weeks' time?
Oh, it's ready.
Okay.
They have it. They have it, so it's only a question of how much. I think we'll know. I'm not trying to tell them. I mean, it's yes, it's a 6-page legalese agreement that talks about licenses and obligations of the party, but I'm sure that if they review it with counsel or whatever, it's something that certainly within a week's time, everyone would understand and either agree to or disagree to. So I don't see that as a problem. I see all I'm trying to do is protect them on making sure that the siding goes up and that the other things that we've agreed with the board that we will do will get done.
Okay. And if you could just clarify on the 3 items, I think the 3, that you're looking for the waiver on perhaps tonight. I understand the concrete curbing, we all viewed that, changing the vertical curbing to asphalt curbing. We saw that completed. With regard to the landscape island, I know there were some modifications that were made, and what exactly is the waiver that you're asking for on the landscape island?
Well, for one, I think you noticed that the granite at the front was older, not brand new, fancy cut on the angle thing. To me, it looked better than some of the new stuff you see today. But
Basically, to maintain that in the condition that we saw.
In the condition, yeah, that you saw it in, correct.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Any board members, any questions? Mr. Genman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attorney Elides, did you want to speak to the relocation of the dumpster? Is that something that's your client is planning to do?
I didn't remember that issue coming to me, to tell you the truth. I think that the fact, it's currently, as I recall, on the back left of the building and covered up. I don't know that it's a problem. Has it been a problem for anyone at the?
No, at the visit that we did, the folks here were telling us that in the initial meetings, that dumpster was supposed to be located in I guess it would be the northeast corner of the property.
Rear right as opposed to rear left, could I say that?
Right.
Okay.
And where it is located now, people who are in the condos in that area look right out onto the dumpster.
Not very pretty, I'm sure.
No, it's not.
Okay.
And so they had suggested that
I
that be moved, and I think we had included it as one of our conditions at that time, along with the landscaping and the other things. So certainly, I think that's something that's important to make sure we address.
I missed that, but I think I can say absolutely we can do that.
Okay. And do you think our next meeting is on the 20th of April. Would it be possible to wait on the waivers until that time? Would that be acceptable? I mean, it's only 2 weeks.
I'm certainly willing to try that, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so, I mean, I would suggest that maybe that's an approach we take, is give the condo association the opportunity to read through the agreement, make sure we have all the conditions in place, and at the follow-up meeting in 2 weeks, issue the waivers.
How about, if I
You
may,
have another suggestion?
trying to save my clients some money here at this point, because as you know, there's been a lot of activity related to this. Can we say that unless you hear to the contrary, in other words, that unless an objection, or that we don't, it's reported to Mr. Clausen, for example, that we don't have an agreement, that the waivers could be approved that night or put into effect that night?
In 2 weeks? I would be okay with that. I mean, that seems like a reasonable.
Just one quick thing, it's just that.
It's not that I don't enjoy coming to meet with you folks on
You don't wanna
Monday
be here?
nights, but it is an imposition, an additional imposition on my client financially at this point now. And I think we have an agreement. So if for some reason, and I'm sure that Kevin will let me know, if for some reason that I can't work out with him those final little whatever details there are, then we'll come back, of course. But if we can report to Mr. Clausen that it's done, a done deal and signed, then I'd like to hope that would take care of it without another appearance.
As long as we have the right at the next meeting to say, oh, there's no agreement here, or the conditions
Oh,
weren't
absolutely.
listed, so we're not
Understood.
issuing the waiver, then I don't have a problem with that.
Uh,
Aaron,
un-
were you going to add something?
I was just going to say that I think the next meeting is actually the 23rd.
It is, because of the
Thursday.
holiday,
It's a
right.
Thursday night, yeah.
Just
Okay.
for clarity. But other than that, I think it's fine. Just maybe set up a situation where Mr. Eliades could submit a signed agreement, submit it to me by that meeting, and then
I would propose that, by the way, and that it become part of the record here as well.
Personally, I'd like to see both items before us at the same time again, because I think it gives the board a lot more leverage.
Makes more sense.
I think, you know, with, both of the matters were conditions that were incorporated by the site plan. One was done at the hearing, one was done by agreement after that was incorporated with us. I think if the all matters came together at the same time, then I think the board, I'd like to see them both together to begin with, to give us more flexibility on which way we're gonna go. That's my concern. If we feel that 60 days is more than reasonable, if things do get worked out, if we're looking at 16 days from tonight's meeting, maybe we could even have everything in within a 30-day period, which would just be a month from tonight's meeting. You know, if you were stuck on an issue with an applicant coming in, I would have no objection to him coming forward, but I think when you're separating some of the issues, what the neighborhood association has is one. Now, when we get back to the specific site plans that we had as well, which Mr. Genman mentions about the dumpsters that are gonna be moved, the question when we went up that day, I know I haven't seen that screening as of yet because it was new, but I knew we had the utilities out in front of the building, which are not screened yet because of the landscaping. So personally, but it's totally up to the board, I'd like to see the waivers and the agreements together to give the board flexibility if they're gonna agree one in part, the other in part, compromise either way, at least we have everything on the table at the same time. That's my personal belief. So I think some of these here, like, for example, the dumpster thing might do both. It's one thing that we agreed, but it's also something that they want. So are we gonna say, yeah, that's nice, but if he's not fine-tuned on that, is that gonna go into their agreement or back to us as a specific condition that we put on it? And then if they say, well, I spoke with them, they're not too up in arms against it, or can we leave it there? But do we leave out their input on that, or? So I'd rather have it almost like a give and take relationship if we have that control.
Mr. Chairman, just so I can understand what you, I know Mr. Genron had indicated in 2 weeks coming back so that they've executed the agreement and we know that that's in place, or are you indicating you'd want to see what they said they would do accomplished? In other words, the siding?
I have no problem with them agreeing to do things. That we can do a conditional vote, no problem.
Okay,
But I think to separate what
Right, okay.
the association is requesting and what we gave as specific conditions.
Sure.
I'd rather look at both of them together at one evening, one night.
Yeah, that
That's my request. I mean, I think when you put the two together, because I think, like, for example, the agreement that the neighborhood had didn't include the dumpster, because we had that as a condition before. You know what I'm saying? That was a condition, that's not in the agreement that they dealt with to begin with. That was a separate issue. The dumpster issue came out as a result of the walkthrough.
Right.
So that is a condition that we've imposed on. We told them to put it in the back, which is an agreement that I'm sure is in his language with them, because this is the first time Attorney Elijah says that he thought it was an issue. So I'm sure, well, I'm guessing, I should say, within the 6 pages that he's drafted with the neighborhood association, there's not one word in there about moving that dumpster. So I'm thinking if we're concerned about moving that does affect them as well as the condition that we put on it. So should we just look at everything together? I'd rather see everything together. That's my concern. But if the board was to split them, I have no problem. But I'd rather see it all together, and if they need a timetable, we can put out 60 dates. If everything's done, we can advance it and do it all in 30. If he is an applicant trying to get in there sooner, we can go up there and look at our conditions and act on it upon ourselves and think that they're all satisfied. We can talk to Aaron. If either conditions are done, we'll even address the dumpster within the next 2 weeks. I don't know. But I'd rather just see it all together. Because I think the dumpster's going to have a spin-off of both. That's my concern. But, I mean, I'll be willing to listen to what everybody else has to say on that. I mean, you want to separate them? That's fine with the board. I mean, I just think you're going to have a little bit of overlap on the two.
If I may, Mr.
Sure.
Chairman, I hear exactly what you're saying, but I just think that if we, in good faith, which I intend that we will do, make sure that the agreement that we've agreed to in principle, is executed in the next, before the next regular meeting, and we move the dumpster,
Okay.
then is there a reason that we should have to come back here on the 23rd to report that?
I don't know. I don't know if you're willing to do the dumpster. I mean, I know that was new to you tonight, so I didn't know what the spin-off that would have on relocating it, what effect it was gonna have on your plans, what the cost would be. I don't know. I didn't know how you're willing to address that. I thought, since you said tonight it was new to you, whether you want to address that with your client, or how it was come into place, I would just, look at the two together. But
Yeah, and if I could follow up on that, I think what the chairman's also saying is that there's going to be an agreement between your client and the condo association that at some point is going to be incorporated into the record, and I think that we as a board have to review that as well and accept and incorporate that into the record, so perhaps it would be best we put all matters on for 2 weeks and just wrap it all up in 2 weeks.
or even further, whatever time you need.
No, I mean, as far as the agreement and the other
Yeah.
waivers, the letter can say you'll take 30 or 60 days or whatever to complete the work.
Right,
but-
and that's what I'm saying. I assume that we can do that before the next meeting, and if we can't, then we'll come here, we will come to that meeting and tell you that. If we can, then we get it done, and then the only hanging issue is getting the siding done. For all I know, I certainly would urge my client to get it done forthwith, as they say, so that we can have it all wrapped up. But I'm just thinking, if we just have an agreement and we move the dumpster, certainly that can be done in the next 2 weeks, I would think, then is it possible that we can just avoid that meeting and just wait for a report to you that the siding's been done?
I have no problem with it being a conditional approval. I mean, we've done these two before, and that's why we're back here. I mean, we agreed to begin with, then we agreed with them, and then the conditions weren't followed through, so that's why we're here. So I have no problem with another conditional approval, to satisfy everybody. I have no problem with that. But I said, no, if we want to put both of them on at the same time, I mean, if you have an agreement with them, it'll be 16, 17 days, to the 23rd, if that agreement was allowed, and if we were satisfied with the waivers that you're requesting, or does the board want to have further negotiation and discussion about the waivers? Or they feel comfortable with the waivers now, depending upon, like, for example, have the utilities out front been screened? All the meters?
Honestly, I didn't look specifically at that
That's a
today
question I
when I
have, because
went
that was
up
another
there.
thing we saw at the site plan, said all these utilities are facing the street, and they all have to be screened. Have
But-
they been?
But certainly, we talked about landscaping, and I don't think it's reasonable for anyone to have assumed that by now, or at this point with the snow just gone from the ground, that we would have all of that work done right away.
I understand that, and when it comes to screening the utilities, we've done screening in different ways in the past, not just landscaping.
I don't want
question would
to,
be how they're gonna
I'd much rather come back and spend an evening with you folks
but I
than
mean, so you're looking at
belabor this any further,
Screening,
so.
the screening
I'll
utilities,
just,
dumpster.
I'll just agree, Mr. Chairman, that we'll come back the 23rd and
mean-
make a report to you.
I mean, it's conditioned upon the board members. I mean, those are just a couple of things, like I say, for the landscaping and the screening aren't necessarily both the same. Sometimes they do it by other ways of landscaping, And so the question may be, on that night, for those meters facing out, which is one of the requirements by us, which isn't a condition, we have to do it regardless thereof. Sometimes we add on the condition to make it strong that we want this, even though this condition, even though our bylaw says they have to be. But on that night, what type of screening the utility's gonna have, and then when you if you do move the dumpster, that requires screening, as you know, and what type of screening, if that's satisfied. But I have no problem putting it on for the 23rd if you need more time, or I think if you, both the issues, I think we can look them all over at the same time, but whichever. Whatever everybody agrees to is fine with me.
Mr. Chairman, in hearing you make your case on this and looking in the waivers that are being asked of this board, and given the fact that we had a specific condition, and whether it be the weather, but the client went ahead and put the asphalt berms and then came back asking for the waivers. And I appreciate the efforts that are being made with the neighbors, and I think where we incorporated the agreement that was drawn up between the neighbors and your client, Attorney Elides, I think it probably would be prudent for this board to, as the chairman suggests, is to have you come back on the 23rd, and I would put that in the form of a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Motion been made. Any discussion? I'll second the motion.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes yes. So we'll continue the matter till April 23rd.
Thank you.
Obviously, hopefully, he'll have a chance to digest with his conditions with that. When he says 6 pages, lawyer involved, it turns into 12 when you, time you discuss it. Right. Yeah, so if you have any concerns with that, you can notify us, or we'll be here on the 23rd, be more than happy to listen to anything you have to tell us. Okay? Thank you for coming down tonight, I appreciate it. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
Could I just make one statement regarding the dumpster?
I suggest you speak with him, and we know where it belongs. But since Attorney Elides is left, I'll let you speak with him about that, okay? We know where it belongs, in the back right. And it was on the left, and that's where,
Well, I just feel there's a misperception. We've been going, we stated it at the first Conservation Committee meeting over a year ago, and they agreed upon it at that time to change the dumpster. It was brought up at every Conservation Committee meeting, and it's still not the way we wanted to do it.
that's why I like to see everything at once, myself.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thanks.
Moving along, the next matter tonight is 1782 Middlesex Street. The board will hear from the applicant for the project located at the above listed address with respect to the progress of the project design. The original plan proposed to raise 3 existing buildings, 2 of which are single-family residence, one located at 6 Wood Street and the other 17-19 Columbia Street. The other building to be raised is the Beauty Salon located at 1782 Middlesex Street. Redevelopment of the site includes 7,500 square foot commercial building providing 5 storefronts, each approximately 1,200 square feet in size. The applicant recently sought and received approval of a zoning change to the above address, accommodating vehicular traffic to the parking area located on Columbia Street via Middlesex or Wood Street. May we hear the case of the applicant, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Attorney James Hall, 25 Fletcher Street in Chelmsford, and I represent the petitioner. And originally, I wanted to come before the board to give the board an update on our rezoning matter, and things have developed a little bit beyond that. So at first hand, we did get the zoning change, so that was the good thing. The next thing is my client and his manager got together to look at the plans. And also they spoke with Mr. Clausen. They felt that the property might be better served if they split the building in half. So it's almost like square one. So we're just finding that out this past late, after I think talked to Aaron to ask him to come before the board to explain that we were going to go forward and move this thing after 10 months. I think what I would like to do now is to ask the board to allow us to withdraw the matter so that we can go back to the planning board. I think it's a good point because it's been 10 months. You know, some people could criticize us, not the board, but we have delayed this out so long. You know, I think it might be better, even if we weren't splitting the building, to start all over again, so that we then would have the public hearing, everyone would see what we have in the ground, and it wouldn't be a delay of 8 or 10 months in starting to finish. So I'd ask the board to consider that. If the board would like us to continue on with what we have, we'll do that. But I think the engineers have looked at this and think that it'd be much better served if they did split the building in half. They might actually add a little more to the parking out front and also help the traffic a little bit more. So with that in mind, and talking with Mr. Clausen, I think that's the direction they'd like to go.
Thank you, Counsel. At this time, what I'll do is I'll ask our associate planner, Mr. Clausen, to update us from his perspective, if he could.
Yeah, as Mr. Hall had pointed out, I spoke with Mr. Gaudet about a week ago about looking at some options and an idea that his client and himself had, Mr. Gaudet had, and it was to accommodate better circulation and access to the site, particularly the additional parking area that abuts Columbia Street. The original plan required a serious amount of circulation to actually access the back end, even if you modified that singular building, shortening it up, moving up a little bit, still required someone driving all the way around, which made for kind of an awkward circulation for vehicles. So the kind of sketch plan that we talked about was breaking the two buildings into two so that the vehicle would have a straight shot into the back parking lot. So we haven't looked at any specific drawings as of yet, but just kind of talked about some concepts. And that before the meeting, talked with Mr. Hall about resubmitting a new plan, just because it's going to be essentially a new project.
So it could come down to a material change anyways if it came before us,
Yes,
a modification.
substantial.
I mean, you know, usually if we have a couple of amendments on the sides, but maybe creating two buildings instead of one, or if you're splitting it in half, or if there's an overhang or whatever, I don't know. But whether it would turn out to be, we get halfway through it and say, well, maybe it's a different change.
We might come back and do it again the same way, I think, but it is a substantial change. And we learned that lesson once before. So I think it would be best for us to start over again.
Any board members have any comments in regards to have the withdrawal and come back with a new plan?
I think
That was Mr.
if the
Lockhart?
applicant feels that that works best and it would improve the traffic flow particularly, we all know how busy it is over the other day. I certainly would be in favor of your suggestion.
It definitely does, because you'd have to come into the project, take a left, take a right, take a left, and then another right to get to the back parking lot, and you'd actually go right around, and when we really look at it, it would be counterproductive to do it that way. It really would be better to go just a straight shot. So it is much, much better traffic-wise, there's no question. It just delays us. We've been at this for almost 2.5 years, I think. I mean, it's just got a life of its own. But I think in the end, if we all work together and we have a better project, it's worth the extra delay.
Mr. Jenner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I like the idea of splitting the building. In fact, I'm going to go back and look at the tape. I think I suggested it in the very first meeting.
You did.
I'm not saying anything. Could have saved us a lot of time. Anyway, but I just wanted to ask you, the intent is still to make sure the traffic doesn't
Absolutely.
exit out into
Nothing on
Columbia.
Columbia. We made that representation at the council, and we'd continue to enter this board also. So there'd be nothing coming off of Columbia into this development.
Right.
It would all
Okay.
come off of Wood.
All right, and I just want to compliment the applicant too, and thank you for sticking with us on this one. I know you've been here more times than you probably wanted to be to make sure this project is done well. So, and here's another effort to try to make sure the property is going to be, built on properly. So I appreciate that, and certainly would support it if that's what you want.
Thank you.
Mr. Fischett?
Mr. Chairman, just a quick comment, and I would agree with allowing the petitioner to withdraw the application. I think it makes a lot of sense. Go back and look at the circulation on the site. Now, that was an issue from day one when we looked at the project, so I think that would benefit the project as well. But just to compliment Attorney Hall, I did catch the presentation to the City Council, and it's the first time I saw the City Council applaud a zoning change. So obviously, it was clear that a lot of work was done with the neighbors and trying to satisfy their needs. And I did verify that you made it very clear that the planning board was very concerned about the access on Columbia and that the proper provisions were going to be made. So again, I would be in favor of that, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Claremont?
I agree. I think if the applicant's willing to withdraw and move forward with a different project that's better suited for the traffic, I'm all in favor for it.
My comments, I agree with, I know the traffic is the issue up there. And I think also, when you talked about how you'd have to come in off the site and take the right, then the left, and the right, I think you'd have a problem there with your plowing and your snow storage, and I know your intent is to truck it off, but where are you gonna put it when you're making all those zigzags in the interim, and it's difficult. So
Right.
I'd have no problem with the withdrawal.
Thank you.
You wanna put that in the form, would you make that motion already, Richard?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right, the motion made,
I'll second.
all in second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes, so this matter's withdrawn at this time, and hope to see
Thank
you
you.
in the near future.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Next matter on the agenda is 1235 Bridge Street, known to all of us as Market Basket. The board will review a request by Valley Properties, Inc., to approve modifications to the previously approved site plan for the property located at the above address. The applicant project includes the demolition of an existing 133,100 square foot retail building containing, among other businesses, a market basket, a vacant Ames department store in construction in its place, and 110,500 square foot shopping center consisting of 3 separate buildings. One building will be 91,062 square feet and house and expand the market basket, grocery store, and space for additional commercial tenants. One building being 5,200 retail building is proposed at the northern corner of the lot, and 14,157 square foot pharmacy featuring a drive-through window is proposed at the southern portion of the lot. Following a review of proposed modifications to the plan, the board will first decide if the alterations can be categorized as a minor change to the approved plan, and if so, will subsequently render a decision on the changes themselves. May we hear from the applicant first? Just so any of the people who are in attendance tonight have any concerns on this, what happens is the applicant brings this in as a minor change. If the board finds that it's a minor change, we could approve it with conditions or not approve it with conditions. If we find that the change is material and substantive change, we can ask that the matter be put out for new public hearing. So first what we'll hear from the applicant on what changes they want to make, then the board will have to make a determination if it's a major and substantial change. If we find that it's not, then the board can determine whether the minor changes are and whether we want to go along with those agreements or put any conditions on that we may. Saying that, may we hear the case for the applicant, please, sir?
Good evening. My name is Brian Pendleton. I'm with the engineering firm at TEC. Also with me is Bridget Wicks with TEC. We're here to represent Market Basket. I think Mr. Lamp has been here several times in front of the board, but he unfortunately couldn't make it this evening. As you mentioned, we're requesting a minor change to a couple of the sizes of the retail buildings. We have some boards, and they're very similar to the plans that have been handed out. I don't know if you want me to bring them inside and go over the changes.
Sure. Could you put them up over there, sir, so we can see
Can
them,
do.
if you don't mind? You could put those right up over there, and that way people in the audience and the cameras can pick it up for the changes. So while he's setting it up, what the board received was a copy of the old plan, and then they gave us a new plan highlighted in red for what their proposed changes will be. And I think also they're requesting that the building be reduced a little bit. I think the above building had 109,219 square feet. They're requesting it be 108,896 square feet. And just on the parking table, they have an existing 354 parking spaces. Proposed they had 292, they're requesting 391, and what they require by our rules and regulations is only 221. So if you don't mind standing over that side so the people over here can hopefully see the plans and listen as well, okay? And you just need that green light to be on to make sure that it's amplifying, okay? Yeah, as long as you see that green button, that means, okay.
Good.
Thank you.
The board can't,
Okay,
audience can't see?
Oh, do you want to push it back a little further, whatever's easier?
Turn it a little?
Actually, if you want to fill in any of these seats here, feel free. Excuse me? Ms. Page, and then if you want to fill right in these seats here, on this side of the railing, if you want to come on this side of the railing, feel free to do so. And you can sit right up here if you like.
We have some half-sides here we could hand out as well.
And could you give a couple of those to David Smaller plans, if you want to pass those out, so they can follow along with us? Okay. You have the seats here, or if you can grab those seats and slide them back behind if you like, but whichever way you feel most comfortable. Okay? Ma'am, if you want to grab one of these seats here, you can just roll them right over there if you like. Okay? There's two extra seats there, you can pull those right back. Okay. You want to start left to right on your plan, or which is easier?
Sure, I'll just, we just brought a copy of, this was the approved plan.
Okay.
Very similar to underneath in red. I think the biggest thing is there was a crosswalk in this area that's not shown in black here. That was removed as part of the change. So that's, I wanted to put up the old plan as it was approved. We're basically here, as we mentioned, the minor changes, we've started to find the tenants that are going to start to occupy space and starting to get requirements or requests. We had this shown as a proposed pharmacy previously. Now I believe they're getting Walgreens to move in here. Walgreens had a minor request. The Walgreens building was about a 77 square foot increase in size, so a very minor increase in size. This building out here, this out parcel that was called Retail 1, I believe that was a 400 square foot increase we're requesting. I believe it was 5,200 square feet approved, and we're looking to go to 5,600 square feet with a couple of small retail shops in that location. Recognizing that we don't want to come in front of the board and just request additional square footage, we look to drop, this is Retail 4. It was approved for 4,000 square feet. We're requesting 3,200 square feet. So all in all, it's a reduction of 300 square feet. 400 square foot increase, roughly a 80 square foot increase, and about 800 square foot decrease. So that's where the changes come from in square footage. Walgreens have done quite a bit of work with. They had numerous requests of, can we make certain changes? Some of them we felt as though would be acceptable to the board, and that's why we're here to verify that. Others we didn't feel would be acceptable. One was changing an island to a painted island, but we had agreed to landscaping, so we said, no, we're not going to ask for that. So in the front of the building, you'll see a long red line. We tried to identify all the changes. There's really no change to the front of the building, but we are getting the architectural details. You can see some red dots on the sidewalk. Those would be column lines for an overhang on the building. So we wanted to get those identified and make sure the board was aware of what was going on. Additionally, there's a red line out here. That would be a piece of curbing. We're going to get some landscaping in between Retail 2 and the driveway. So that was, again, from the column line to make room for some of these column lines and the overhang. We had to do something to make sure people weren't running their cars into that. So you can see basically the change for the cut-through here was previously out in the top in this area for pedestrian to be able to cut across and use some additional parking. I forget how many spaces are in here. That was another thing. We did lose one parking space. As you mentioned, we're well above the required. I believe it was 221 required, and we're well in excess of that. I think that's really summarizes everything we've got for requesting changes here. I don't know if we want to field questions, or is there anything I missed, Bridget?
On your retail building number 3 there, the 15,000 square feet, the left to the first building to the left, no, up higher,
yep.
right there.
Yep.
What's your red in front of that?
That's these column
Coming
lines.
towards me, right there. That
Oh,
piece
this
right there.
is a crosswalk.
Okay.
Because of the column, you can see one of the columns fell right within that wheelchair ramp.
Yes.
We had to shift the wheelchair ramp over slightly.
Oh, okay.
So that changes the slight alignment of that crosswalk. Same thing down here. You can see there's a slight alignment change on the crosswalk.
Any board members have any questions at this time? Then after that, I'll see if any of the neighbors have any questions. Go ahead, sir.
Sorry, Bridget just reminded me, they did request an additional compactor at this location. They change locations. Okay, so it's just the single compactor. So it looks like we had a bigger area here in black reserved for the compactor. Now it's a smaller compactor. They just changed the direction it's facing. You can see in the red.
Okay.
So this black one isn't needed anymore. It got smaller and facing the
So
opposite
the black
direction.
one's gonna be removed, and this one go with the red one,
Correct.
which is smaller in size, okay. So I know, one of the concerns that we had before were the walls that were behind Walgreens into the people's property to the right, all those walls are staying as, right?
Correct.
Okay. I know that was a concern, one of the concerns have been before, so. Hey, Mr. Gentleman, I think you had a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going to ask about that compactor, but you already answered that. Looks like you've redirected the traffic a little bit. Is that true? Around the back of the drive-through?
I think the intent was that this would be trucks only for entering, and just to make it easier to access for a truck, looks like we had rearranged the compactor direction. And I don't think the intent was, I think we were always circulating around the building in this direction once you went through the drive-through to continue around the building, and I believe that's still the...
They did add the additional pavement markings for one-way.
Oh, okay. 'Cause I saw the one-way there. It's not that it wasn't one-way before, you just added the markings. Okay, that's good. And these posts in front of retail 3 and 2, those are just to keep cars from going up on the sidewalk, is that true?
No,
Columns for an overhang.
Oh,
Sidewalk.
so the overhang is new?
Yes, I believe so.
Oh, okay.
yeah, I don't think they had the building detail at that point. The architect came in and started adding some detail.
Okay.
Actually,
That's fine.
I think the building elevation that was submitted showed that there was columns. It just didn't translate into the site plan. So actually, I think it's just kind of rectifying a mismatch between the plan and the architectural elevation, so.
I would say the changes seem minor and perhaps even improvements to the project. This crosswalk that comes from Walgreens, is that just a new crosswalk that was added?
It was just relocated. There used to be a connection coming from the top of the sidewalk in front of Walgreens.
Okay,
It just got shifted down to connect with the handicap spaces.
okay. Thank you.
Any other board members have any comments at this time? If not, I'm gonna ask the
I
neighborhood
just
association.
have
if they have any
one
questions.
One
Sure.
question. You know, the square footage changes are relatively minor. Have they impacted the building lot at all, exterior to the buildings?
No, as you can see,
What is the impact of that, is what I'm simply...
the size, it looks like about a 5-foot step on this location, probably one of the biggest.
So you're saying there's really no impact?
And the one to the back right there is pushed back, right? To the right of Market Basket?
No, this is actually, it comes closer, it gets squeezed on both ends. You can see the black lines here. It was a little longer on both, towards the front and towards the back, and we've taken, it appears to be about 10 feet front and back, taken off the proposed building.
Is the liquor store staying on the premises? Do you know, is one of the tenants?
I do not know. I would
I know
imagine,
someone's
I would
staying
imagine if
somewhere.
they've been there this long, they probably will, but
Yeah, I didn't know which
don't-
building they'd be in if they were there. 'Cause I know some, when they come in, they said some tenants were gonna stay, some weren't. They were working those out.
Yep. They don't let me in on the inner workings of...
They just give you the prints, right? Any board members else have any questions? If not, I'm gonna ask the association for the neighborhood or the neighbors and see what their concerns are, then I'll give the board a chance to respond on those.
Thank you.
Anyone from the neighborhood association have any questions or concerns of the board? Just give us your name and address for the record, please, and then if you could just ask the questions through us, and we'll address them through them. Sure. Why don't I just let you go to the microphone, okay? Can they pick it up better on TV at home? Yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll let you pick up the mic there, so that way, I think it picks up better at home. Right. Okay.
Actually, the only thing I want to say is I want to thank everybody for this project. It's really beautiful. We've met with Market Basket, and they've done what they said they would do. This is actually an improvement, I think, from what we first saw. I'm really appreciative that they're going to be putting the electronic perimeters for the carriages. And I'm hoping that it's for all the stores in there, not just Market Basket, but for all the stores that are in there, to keep the carriages out of the neighborhoods, because we're working on a campaign right now to clean up Centerville, and part of it is to get companies that have carriages to keep them secured on their property. And I'm impressed. I think, Market Basket's been a very good neighbor to all of us with Centerville and in Drake-it, and we really look forward to the new project, and I have nothing but good things to say, and thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for coming down and speaking. Appreciate it. Anybody else have any questions, any concerns, anything they'd like to state? Yes. Good. Well, usually when you see plan of this size, as you well know, Ms. Page, that it's pretty hard to get it right the first time. So they're bringing it back before us. This is a good thing, because you're going to say, okay, when they start building them and they have to make little changes and they're back before us, they have the neighborhood input, we're here, and I think what the gentleman said to begin with, instead of trying to make the other buildings bigger, he didn't think we'd go for that, so he downsized the Market Basket to make these fit in the plan, which I think is a good thing. I mean, he keeps the concept in there. Right. Yeah. And I think really the biggest part of the plan that we spent most of our time on when we were here before was the grow greens. It wasn't even the Market Basket. It was to make sure that the queuing, pulling in for the pharmacy, and the traffic and the curb cuts were cut the right way, coming in with the new professional building to the right, and making sure that. So I think most of the detail and a lot of it was spent on the Walgreens. And obviously, as the applicant says, if they start to go out the field, they have to do some work, they say they want to make some changes. I'm glad to see that they're back here, requesting the agreements with us, keeping everybody up to date. So, we approve something, you watch it, and they start building, you look at it and say, they didn't approve that, and then, and you keep us up to breast on that very well, so we appreciate that. So I think by coming back forward with these changes, I myself think they are minor changes and they are for the better.
And just a comment, if I could, Mr. Chairman, I do appreciate how well drawn the plans are, and putting the changes in red right on the original plan makes it very easy to follow, and you can see exactly where the changes are. It doesn't always come through that way, and it's difficult to pick up. I think that's well done. And so thank you for that, and tell all your engineering friends to do the same.
Less questions for us, easier for you to present.
Correct.
Right. Okay. Well, I think the first thing the board has to do first is make a determination that it is a minor change, and therefore we don't need to have a new public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we consider these changes to be categorized as minor in nature.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. The next matter would have to indicate whether we want to approve the minor changes as amended by the applicant.
Can I just one question
Sure.
before we move on? It was pointed out, I'm also here to try and present the elevation views of Retail 1, to make sure I think you have a copy of that in your package as well, to get your comments and potentially approval on that. So I just didn't know what order we should be doing it, so I didn't want to forget.
Aaron, any comment on that? I know you spent some time on this.
Yeah, if I could just make a couple comments. This elevation actually is a little bit different than what was originally planned. Obviously, it's going to be because of the massing changes with the bump out in the front. I actually think it improves the way that building is going to be received on Bridge Street. It gives a little bit more of a volume change. Sorry, this is loud. And there's a good amount of windows to provide transparency. The building is in style, this is maybe more detailed, but in style it's a little bit more, I guess, postmodern traditional with some gables, and then some kind of more, the overhangs are more industrial in feel. The original was kind of more of an 1860s modern. I think it will actually kind of gel with the neighborhood a little bit better. So that seems to be an improvement from my perspective. On the Walgreens elevation, just as a note, they're still working on that with Walgreens on the final details. Some of the things that will be worked out still is the corral for the dumpster and the compactor. And there was some other questions on locations of pilasters, and I think an overhang as well. There's still some question whether or not that's going to work out. So I think they're going to continue working on that issue, bring it back to the planning department to review, and then back to the planning board for a final approval on that. So you have a chance to see the Walgreens at a later date as well.
What about the signage? Do you have an issue on how that's coming back before us, or will that have to go?
That's still being worked
That's up
out
in
as
the air,
well. The
right?
sign package hasn't been developed either, but that was placed as a condition to come before the planning board before they seek the special permit with the zoning board of appeals.
So then you mentioned that, I just thought of the signage, okay.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, just a comment too, and I think what jumps out is the materials that are being used in the Walgreens and the other building on the far left, they complement each other too. So, I mean, it's, which stands out when you look at it, the brick and the roofing material as well, so.
Brick is nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so we had the motion approved, that is not a material change, so I think we're still back to, after Aaron commented on whether the board wants to accept the amendments as amended and proposed by the applicant.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the amendments as proposed by the applicant.
I'll second that.
Motion made and second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Good luck, and thank you for bringing it back. We like to see when you bring things back like this sometimes, and that way we can follow what's going along. Obviously, so we see the change, and I think it's easier for yourself as well.
Right.
But
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Yeah, that's it.
Did you sign in? You did, okay, well.
It was nice to see the request before that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a nice structure. Yeah. It's gonna be beautiful over there. Another little building going in there, Johnny. This guy.
Gene, sign this.
Ah, jeez.
Moving along on the agenda. Actually, can I step outside while we move along the agenda, please? Thank you. Okay. Moving along on the agenda, we have some notices from a budding town that we all received by way of email from Aaron. Do we have any communication, any questions on the notices from budding town?
Chairman, I make a motion that we place them on file.
Motion's made. You want to second that, Madam?
Speaking?
Second.
Let's speak.
Motion's made and second, placing the notice on budding towns on file. The next matter we have is the zoning board of appeal notices. We do have 3 in our packet this evening, and these are matters that are on for public hearing for April 13th before the zoning board of appeals, which will be held at 6:30 p.m. here in the city council chambers. The first matter is for a special permit for a sign, and this is RF Construction and Maintenance, 24 Branch Street, and this is a neighborhood business zone, and this is to install an internally illuminated projection sign for jewelry store, retail location at the above address, according to the section 6.3.2 of the zoning ordinance for signs. We do have a copy in the packet in regards to what this sign may look like if approved.
Mr. Chairman, normally we forward these to our design planner, chief planner who looks at signs for feedback. I think this one at 24 Branch Street and the one at 346 Westford Street are both signs. So I would suggest, or I would make a motion that we forward those 2 issues to our chief design planner in charge of signs for a recommendation.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
Second the motion, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Chairman votes yes. So that one for the sign at 24 Branch Street, just by way of, for reading the other matter, that it is request for a special permit sign, and this is at 346, 350, 356 Westford Street, and this is to put a sign on for the TD Bank North sign and make in the same section. As Board Member Gedman requested, he requested this matter be, motion that that matter be referred to our design planner as well. That's he made that, and we have a motion. Anybody want to second that motion? Second. Motion's made and second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Chair votes yes. So both those matters for the sign on Westford Street and Branch Street are referred to the design planner, and that design planner will give a recommendation to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Now, the next matter we have is for a special permit, and this is Coal Hole Fuel, Inc., or 493 Princeton Boulevard, and this is a traditional single-family zone, and this is to expand the existing non-conforming automotive fuel and repair services to include the sale of used automobiles in accordance with the Lowell zoning ordinance, Article 12, Section 12.6B, Table of Uses, and Section 4.5.2, non-conforming uses. We do have a narrative and a copy of the, actually, two copies of two plans in the packet. One showing Baldwin Street, Laurent Street, Princeton Boulevard.
Mr. Chairman, if I just taking a ride by the site, obviously it's a large site. I guess my concern is it's in a, the nonconformity is the fact that it's in a traditional single-family zone, and expanding that use, I would have concern about that. Clearly, again, there's it's a nice large lot, and I understand that. I certainly would want the benefit of a public hearing with the residents around there, and I do have some concern expanding the retail use of that site. You know, it's one thing a gas station, you know, fits into the traffic going by, but now you're creating a destination for people to purchase cars, and I don't know if that's perhaps the best location. Again, it's in a traditional single-family zone. Now, unless, and I know the Zoning Board of Appeals at times have issued these almost on a temporary basis and have them come back, and I suspect if they, I don't, you know, if they could handle it so that it would be just to that particular owner and then to monitor it, I suspect. I just would not want to see that be transferred with the property as now a use that's approved. I just think that could be abused, and especially it's just further encroaching onto that traditional single-family area. Having said that, I would not want to give a favorable recommendation here this evening without at least a public hearing. And I think philosophically I have a problem with approving it. So my recommendation would be to give a negative recommendation.
I agree with Mr. Frichette's assessment. It's non-conforming now, and I cannot, you know, support something that's just going to increase that. It doesn't belong in that neighborhood to begin with. Although it's been there for many years, I can't support expanding it in that location. That's all.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's in its current state, it's kind of a neighborhood gas station repair type thing. So I think it works in its current state, but to expand the non-conforming use in a traditional single family, as Jerry mentioned, Hadley Field right behind it, I just think it's probably not something we want to support.
In addition, even though it's a pre-existing non-conforming, it appears to be directly abutted by a couple of residential lots, so that'd be somewhat difficult, so I would agree.
Yeah, and they don't actually come out and ask how many motor vehicles, but on the second plan, they show parking for 20. And a lot of times, when you deal with used cars, sometimes they just stack them in, you know, and so it's not like you can go and pull them out, you know what I mean? So,
tough to control.
I mean, when you look at 16 here on the bottom plan, they're all, I mean, you'd have to move probably quite a few of them to get some of those, get some out to even just take them, you know, for a drive. You know, if you look at the bottom, I mean, like, you have a couple of facing the street, then you have one 3 in and 3 deep, and if you have 20, I know we had an issue with these before, I think, and I forget what the detail was. I remember when Mr. Jeffrey was on our board, he had some information in regards to these, and I guess how many you can have, there's a under amount, and then you have to go for a larger license, Rich, do you remember?
Yeah, I think in the past, I was
It
thinking
dealt with how
about-
many cars you were selling, too.
Yeah, we can almost we can limit the quantity, the
Yeah.
parking lot can.
So the question is, you know, if you allow
and
20,
approve it for that level, but not.
how many
anything
actually
higher.
show up, and how do you enforce it?
How do you
And how do you
enforce
say,
it?
you know, and then he moves over, he has
lot of
customer parking of 4 parking spaces, and would, out the benefit of public hearing, would the 4 customer parking spaces be enough? I see they do have 1 handicap, so I think the question comes into the amount of cars, the accessibility for parking as well. So that'd be a concern I would have, as well as all the concerns that have been issued by the fellow board members. So it sounds like we're all in a negative of this matter.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to deny the applicant.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Aaron, do you have basically some of the concerns that we said, or do you need those more in the form of the motion?
No, I think I captured that.
Yeah, I mean, I know when we make a denial, we have to state reasons, but I think we all echoed one reason or another, but,
It's non-conforming and it's.
Yeah, I think I can
okay.
fit that into the motion there. the
Okay.
General reason for that. When I make my recommendation to the zoning board of appeals, if there's some discussion, just for your information between the board members, I usually try to add that in there so they have a little
Yeah, I
context
mean,
for the
basically, it's
vote.
not conforming to begin with, this will make it more non-conforming.
Yep.
Question of how many cars are gonna be in there, how it's gonna affect the, I mean, the main thing that's non-conforming now, and basically, yeah, how it abuts back into, basically, I think the main thing that, I think Jerry's concern was to begin with, was what the zone was in to begin with.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, it's a, but he, you know, it's a, traditional, single-family residence zone. So you're in a single family, you have the non-conforming, now you go more non-conforming.
We're gonna sell cars.
Yeah, so I think those would be the main highlights, you know, single-family residence, non-conforming, more existing non-conforming, how many cars. Okay.
Right.
Moving along on that, any correspondences, or any comments for any further board matters? Just as indicated, the next meeting will be on the 23rd, due to the fact that 2 weeks from tonight is the holiday. So I have no further comments, entertain a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chairman, before we adjourn, I just wanted to make you aware that at the next meeting, April 23rd, I won't be here. I'll be away that entire week, so you want to use, you know, if there's something, Aaron, that comes on the agenda that they're going to require a full board, you won't have one that week.
It's a pretty light agenda. In fact, I think it's probably just going to be ZBA notices and
Mr. Leidy's?
and Mr. Leidy's back, so I don't think it's...
He'll be happy, he wants to get in and out.
So any further discussion? Okay, if not, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Motion's made and second? Second. All in favor, say aye. Okay. Thank you, and good night, everybody.
So Steve, tell me, did you